Hi everyone, it's Deb from the Geelong Museum, locked up with history and twisted history today. Just coming to bring you a story, a Christmas story to a degree, but not really, more of a creepy Christmas story. I do have my Christmas shirt on, so I'm trying to be a little bit more festive. But today I wanted to talk to you about Frederick Deeming, and for anybody who knows me, knows that Frederick Deeming is one of my favourite serial killers. I've actually written a chapter in one of Roy Malloy's books, The Dawn of Crime 6, The Hunt for the Australian Ripper. There's quite an extensive chapter in there on Frederick Deeming's story, which I'll show you that in a minute too. But I'm just going to swing you around so I can show you who I'm talking about. So this is Frederick Deeming, well, his death mask anyway. And what more perfect place to talk about him than in our morgue and on our morgue table. So this was a death mask that was taken of Frederick Deeming, a copy one, that was taken of Deeming after his execution in May 1892. And he was executed for the murder of his wife, Emily. And I'll tell you a little bit more about her story in a moment. This is the book, if you're interested. It's called The Hunt for the Australian Ripper. That's Frederick Deeming on the cover there, which tells his entire story from when he was born right through. Now, Frederick Deeming, in the early hours of Christmas morning or late on Christmas Eve, decided to take a knife and cut Emily's throat while she was asleep. He then buried her underneath the hearth in the second bedroom, and he paid the rent up to the beginning of March, and he left. He went to Melbourne and, using a variety of different aliases, moved around Melbourne, even on the 4th of January 1892, going to the Holt's matrimonial agency seeking his next wife. Now, eventually Emily's body was discovered. It was taken to the Melbourne morgue after it had been dug out of the cement, and she was identified mostly by her very long braid, which unfortunately became detached during the decomposition process. But that was how many of the other passengers on the Kaiser Wilhelm II, that they'd come out to Australia from England on. Now, she eventually was identified. Once they identified her, they were able to identify him. Now, they travelled out under the name of Williams. So he was going by the name of Albert Williams, and Emily as Emily, of course. And what they found is when they started researching into the case and digging into his background, they discovered he had another wife and 4 children. And they unfortunately were discovered buried under the kitchen at a place called Rainhill in Lancashire, in a house called Denham Villa. So he'd murdered all of them by cutting their throat, although one was strangled, which is very interesting. And then he buried them underneath the hearth as well. Here in Australia, in the meantime, he'd headed up to Sydney. He'd managed to convince another young lady to marry him. Said that he was an engineer heading to the mines in Western Australia, and that was eventually where he was captured. During some of the newspaper reports that came out during that time, they asked him if he was Jack the Ripper, and he said, yes, I am. Now, I don't believe he was, purely and utterly because I believe he was in South Africa at the time that a lot of the murders were taking place. In fact, he was being followed by a Victorian detective who'd been hired by the South African Society to investigate into a couple of crimes that had happened there. But nevertheless, doesn't matter how he got there, he ended up going to his death on the gallows at Old Melbourne Jail on the 23rd of May 1892. If you like this story and like to hear some more, please come and visit me on Locked Up with History. Thanks. Merry Christmas.